First story. I cheated, divorced, and abandoned my kids for my affair partner. But he dumped me, so I returned after 14 years and demanded that my ex-husband give my kids back. Then I grounded the kids for not respecting me. Now my kids have abandoned me, and I regret my actions. Throwaway because my son follows my main. I'm 39F, and I've been sober for 3 years now. I had 2 kids with my ex-husband, a daughter who's 17 and a son who's 16. I was out of their lives for over a decade. That's the truth. I didn't raise them. I know a lot of people will probably stop reading here, but I need to explain. When I met my ex-41M, I thought he was the safe one, the stable one. I'd grown up in a home that was unpredictable and cold, and for a long time I just wanted quiet. He had it together, job, patience, wanted kids. We had our daughter when I was 22 and our son when I was 23. And during those early years, I hid a lot. I was drinking more than I should have. At first it was social. Then it was daily. Then it was everything. I was also using pills, mostly Xanax, sometimes pain meds I'd swipe from friends' cabinets. Nobody noticed, not even him, for a long time. I knew how to smile, cook, show up for PTA, and play the role. But I was unraveling. The real fracture happened when I met someone else. I'll call him T. I met T in a recovery meeting I went to a few times, trying to do damage control before anyone caught on. He was older and charming, called me out on my fakeness, and said I needed to feel alive again. It was the worst possible influence at the worst possible time. We started an affair that lasted 7 months. When my ex found out, he was furious. Up until then, he'd actually been trying to help me. He'd cleaned me up more than once and talked to my parents when I went missing for a day or two. But when he learned about T, something shut off in him. He pulled back completely. Not just emotionally, but practically. He stopped covering for me. He told me he wasn't going to lie to the kids anymore about where I was or why I missed stuff. I panicked. I moved out a month later and filed for divorce. It wasn't some dramatic betrayal moment. I think we both just knew it was broken. T had promised he'd get us a place, that we'd build some clean future together. That fell apart about 3 months in. He relapsed. I did too. He left the state, and I ended up living out of a borrowed car. At that point, I was doing things I still can't talk about easily just to stay high and warm. My parents cut me off after I stole from them during a desperate week. I saw my ex exactly once during that time. I'd shown up at the kids' daycare without warning. I was high, but I thought I looked okay. I just wanted to see my son. The daycare called him, and he came down with this blank look on his face. Not angry, just done. He asked me what I thought I was doing. I didn't have an answer. He told me to leave and never do that again. About 6 months later, I signed away my custody rights. At the time, I justified it by telling myself they'd be better off. I was deep in it, and I didn't want them seeing me like that. I told myself it was noble. Looking back, I was also a coward. I didn't want to face their questions, their disappointment. I didn't want to see in their eyes what I already hated in the mirror. I stopped asking about them completely. I didn't know where they were living or what they looked like. I just kept slipping. It took 5 years of that life before I started to try to get clean. My second OD scared me. I didn't wake up in a hospital. I woke up on a bathroom floor in a halfway house with blood in my mouth and no memory of the night before. That was my rock bottom. Not dramatic, just disgusting. I got sober for the first time at 33 and relapsed at 34. Finally got it to stick at 36. I've been clean since. I have a job now. I rent a duplex. I've got friends who aren't using. I go to meetings. I volunteer with women coming out of the system. I also started going to therapy regularly, and I worked through the 12 steps. One of those steps, making amends, kept circling me back to my kids. It took me a year to even write the first message to my ex. I didn't know if he'd reply. He did, but it was formal. Straightforward. He said he'd need time. He also told me up front that the kids knew who I was, and they knew everything. He said they could decide on their own if they wanted to meet me. They did. Our first meeting was awkward. They were tall. They had inside jokes. My daughter had her mom's sarcasm, not mine, but her stepmom's. I wasn't jealous, just weirdly sad. Like watching someone else live the life I forfeited. But they didn't seem angry. Just cautious. Over the next year, things slowly built up. They started seeing me twice a week. We'd do breakfasts mostly, sometimes an afternoon hang if it worked. They didn't call me Mum, and I didn't push it. I just wanted a relationship. I told myself, just show up, be consistent, and don't screw it up. My ex even started letting me come to dinners at his place. It was surreal. Sitting at the same table again, like time folded in on itself. But it wasn't the same. I could tell he was watching me closely, especially around the kids. I kept my head down, helped with dishes, and stayed friendly. Nothing more. And for the most part, it worked. I stayed out of major decisions and didn't try to discipline. I focused on building trust. I'd text them good morning, send pictures of my dog, and ask about school stuff. They seemed to genuinely enjoy it. Then last month, they told me about a party they'd gone to. It came up casually. We were having pancakes. My daughter said something like, "You wouldn't believe who hooked up with whom," and then added they tried jelly shots. My son joked about it, said they were gross, and that was that. They said they weren't drunk, they didn't like it, and they came home early. I tried to play it cool at first, but my stomach flipped. I couldn't stop picturing them slipping. The same way I did. First drink. Then more. Then pills. Then waking up in strangers' apartments. I know that's not rational. They're not me. But it hit me hard. I told them I didn't think that was okay. That they needed to take this seriously. I said I was grounding them from electronics and hanging out with friends for 2 weeks. I know it sounds weird coming from someone who hasn't raised them. But I said it because I meant it. Because I care. Because no one grounded me when I started experimenting. And maybe if they had. They went quiet. Said okay. Asked me to take them home early. Then I got a message from my ex asking me to step outside when I dropped them off. He laughed. Not in a cruel way. More like I was a ridiculous stranger. He asked me what made me think I had any right to discipline his kids. I told him I wanted to be a real parent. Not just the fun breakfast lady. I said I'm showing up. I'm doing the work. I want them to be safe. I want to be there, even when it's uncomfortable. He looked at me and said, and I quote, "They're past the age of crawling into my bed, crying about why mommy doesn't love them. You can leave again if you want." He told me there is no team here, just him and the kids. That they listen to him because he's earned it. That I should know better than to think I can swoop in and act like a mum now. I didn't have a response ready for that. Not a clever one, not a calm one. What he said landed exactly where it was meant to. I knew that story already. I lived it from the other side. I just didn't expect him to say it out loud like that, in front of the house we once shared. I told him I wasn't trying to replace anything. I wasn't pretending I raised them. I said I was trying to participate in their lives in a real way, not just show up for the easy parts. I said I couldn't keep pretending I was some distant relative when, biologically and emotionally, I'm still their mother. I said I needed his support if this was going to work. That's when he said I was trying to rewrite history. That I didn't get to decide what role I play now just because I finally got my life together. That whatever guilt I was carrying wasn't something he owed me relief from. He asked me if I remembered the night our daughter spiked a fever, and he couldn't reach me. Or the time our son split his chin, and I was passed out on the couch at T's place. He asked if I remembered signing the paperwork voluntarily. No threats. No pressure. Just walking into the courthouse and removing myself. I do remember. Every detail. I just didn't think those moments were going to be used as weapons forever. I told him addiction warps judgment. That I wasn't making choices the way a healthy person does. That signing my rights away wasn't some clean decision. It was survival mode. That I believed they were safer without me, and I didn't trust myself not to ruin them. I thought he, of all people, would understand that. He said understanding doesn't equal erasing consequences. The conversation ended there. I got in my car and drove away before I said something worse. I cried the entire way home, which I hated myself for. I wasn't crying because he hurt my feelings. I was crying because he was right about one thing. I don't get to retroactively earn the years I missed. But here's where I'm struggling. I don't think I was wrong to react to the party. I don't think it's inappropriate to be concerned about alcohol, given my history and their genetics. Both kids were open with me. They didn't hide it. They brought it up casually. That tells me they trust me at least a little. And I didn't tell them they were bad or reckless. I didn't threaten them. I said there needed to be consequences, because trying substances at their age is still a big deal. I also didn't go behind my ex's back. I didn't contradict his rules. I had no idea he'd already approved the party. That part came later. When I realized that, it made me feel like the dumb outsider again, reacting without context because I'm not in the daily loop. I skipped the next 2 breakfasts after that. Not to punish the kids. I didn't want them caught in the middle. I didn't want them feeling like they had to pick sides or manage our tension. So I told them I was busy with work, sent my usual good morning texts, and left it at that. They replied. Short messages, but normal. No anger. No blame. That almost made it worse. Because now I'm sitting with this question I don't know how to answer. If I'm not allowed to care loudly, what is my role supposed to be? Am I just meant to nod along and smile, and keep my opinions to myself so everyone stays comfortable? Am I supposed to wait until they're adults, and only then have a voice, when it's too late to matter? I know I don't get equal footing. I'm not asking to override him. I'm not asking to make household rules. But I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that my concerns are taken seriously rather than mocked. His laugh hurt more than anything else. It told me exactly where I rank. Not as someone rebuilding, not as someone who did the work, but as a temporary guest who forgot her place. What also stings is that he keeps saying this is about protecting the kids, but no one has asked them how they feel about it. They're old enough to understand nuance. They're old enough to know I messed up and still want me around. They're old enough to handle difficult conversations without needing him to act as gatekeeper. I'm not denying that he earned his authority. He raised them. He showed up every day when I didn't. I will always be grateful for that. But I don't think that means I have to exist in a permanent state of apology, where any attempt to parent is seen as an attack on his past sacrifices. I've replayed his line in my head over and over about them crying in his bed, asking why I didn't love them. I don't dispute that happened. I hate myself for it. But what exactly am I supposed to do now? Agree that I forfeited any right to care about their safety or development forever? Show up twice a week, keep things light, and never challenge anything no matter how serious it feels to me? I didn't ground them to feel powerful. I did it because fear kicked in. Fear that I could see a path I walked myself and didn't know how to stop myself from reacting to it. Maybe I overstepped. Maybe I needed to talk to him first. I can accept that. What I can't accept is being told I should either know my place or disappear again. I didn't ask him to forget the past. I asked him to acknowledge the present. I've been consistent. I've been sober. I've been appropriate. I haven't missed a scheduled meet. I don't undermine him in front of the kids. I don't trash his parenting. I don't try to buy their affection. I just show up, the same way everyone tells addicts to do when they're trying to repair damage. Now we haven't spoken in over a week. He hasn't blocked me. He hasn't asked me to stop contacting the kids. He's just gone silent with me. The kids still text me. I still reply. We haven't mentioned the argument. Part of me feels like I should apologize just to keep the peace. Another part feels like that apology would cement exactly what he wants me to believe, that I should be grateful for crumbs and keep my head down. So I'm asking honestly and not defensively. Was I wrong to try to discipline my teenage kids when I found out they were experimenting with alcohol? Was I wrong to expect some level of partnership instead of being laughed at? Or am I wrong for thinking that being absent once means I never get to try again? Aita. Comments. Comment 1. YTA. Look, I get you've done the work. 3 years sober is no joke, and props for that. But walking back into your kids' lives and thinking you're in the same lane as the guy who held it all down for over a decade, that's going to piss people off. Especially him. He didn't just raise them, he had to unpick the emotional mess left behind and do it while pretending he wasn't probably breaking down inside. So when you show up, even with good intentions, and hit them with a 2-week grounding like you've got equal say, he's not going to see mother stepping up. He's going to see guest overstepping. Harsh, but it makes sense. You're not wrong for wanting to protect them. But you tried to do it alone. You're not solo parenting here. You don't get to discipline from the outside without buy-in. And yeah, he was cold. But he's been carrying resentment that probably eats him alive. If you want in, play the long game. Take the ego out of it. This is about their safety, sure. But it's also about learning to walk before you try sprinting into parenting decisions. Comment 2. This is brutal because I don't think either of you are 100% wrong or right. But damn, I don't blame your ex for snapping. From where he's standing, he put in 16 years of solo parenting. Picked up the pieces, answered the hard questions, wiped tears every single time. That kind of day in, day out grind changes how you see things. So when you stepped in and tried to ground the kids without talking to him first, yeah, I get why he saw red, even if your heart was in the right place. The thing is, parenting isn't just about being present. Now it's about history and trust built brick by brick. And whether it's fair or not, you weren't there for the hard part. That doesn't mean you're unwelcome. But jumping straight to punishment skips a lot of steps. You want to parent, build it slow. Earn their trust and his. You're working from a deficit. That sucks, but it's real. Doesn't mean you back out, just means you recalibrate. Saying you care doesn't hit the same as living it every day. Keep showing up. Be consistent. Don't try to match authority, grow influence. Comment 3. He didn't laugh to humiliate you. He laughed because it probably felt absurd. Like, the same woman who disappeared when fever spiked and knees split open is now setting punishments for things he already handled. It's not about dismissing your effort, it's the mismatch in weight. He carried years. You just started lifting. He's also probably scared in his own way. Scared that your presence might confuse the balance he's worked to keep steady. Maybe he's not saying it outright. But when someone builds everything alone, the idea of another person, even the biological mother, suddenly enforcing discipline without checking in, that's going to feel like an intrusion. You're grieving what you missed. Understandable. But grief doesn't translate to authority. It starts with presence. Not control. Not punishment. Presence. Consistent, steady, boring arse presence. Honestly, if you just said, "That worries me," and brought it to him instead of hitting them with restrictions, it might have gone differently. It wasn't the rule, it was who laid it down and how. Doesn't mean you're irrelevant. It means you're rebuilding trust. And it doesn't skip steps. If this really matters to you, be quieter. Not absent. Quieter. People hear more when you're not shouting over a history they lived. Comment 4. That punishment didn't land because you didn't build the foundation first. Respect isn't given because you share blood. It's earned through time and presence. And not presence like showing up with pancakes and text messages. I mean presence when things are inconvenient. When they've had a bad day and don't want to talk. When they make dumb decisions that don't justify panic. Your ex has that track record. You don't. Yet, you panicked and defaulted to discipline because it made you feel like a parent. But discipline without relationship just feels like control. If they'd hidden it from you, different story. But they were honest. You had a chance to open a dialogue, and you closed it with consequences. No matter how clean your intentions were, you sent the message that their honesty gets punished. That's where you fumbled. Doesn't mean you should walk away. Just means next time, lead with conversation. Ask questions. Don't default to the heavy hand. Let them show you who they are before reacting to who you were. The stakes feel high because you're terrified of repeating history. But if they see you trust them to be different, maybe they won't have to repeat it at all. Update. Well, that post blew up in ways I wasn't ready for. I read hundreds of comments and save the ones that hit hard. But I didn't agree with most of them. Not fully. I understand where people are coming from. But I think people miss how time distorts everything when you've been out of your kids' lives that long. It's not just guilt. It's panic. You start counting the weeks. You see your daughter turning 18 and realize the door is closing. That if you don't say something now, do something now, you'll never get a second chance. After the last fight with my ex, I backed off. Gave them space. But it felt fake, like I was being forced to play the supporting character in a story I helped start. So I did a few things I thought might help them see me fully. Whether it worked or not, I'll let you decide. First was my daughter's birthday. She's been saving up for a car with her part-time job. I found a decent used Civic, nothing flashy. Clean record, recent maintenance. Paid for it myself. I planned to give it to her as a surprise during breakfast. I wanted it to be a proud moment. "I know I missed your birthdays. I want to show you I'm here now." She looked shocked when I handed over the keys. Said she couldn't accept it without talking to her dad. I told her it wasn't a bribe. It was from me to her. She asked if he knew. I told her no. She got quiet. Didn't say thank you. Just said she had to get to class. I found out later she left the car at the diner lot and took the bus home. That night, my ex texted me. "Return the car. Don't do this again." No room for discussion. That was Monday. By Wednesday, I asked the kids to meet me for breakfast again. No gifts this time. Just talking. I told them I wanted us to go on a short weekend retreat. Nothing weird, a family healing workshop. One of those organized things for estranged relatives. They both hesitated. I said I'd already booked it. Told them they wouldn't have to speak if they didn't want to. I just wanted the space to be us without their dad hovering. They agreed. I picked them up Friday afternoon. The place was a rented lodge outside the city. Quiet, no cell signal. We sat with a small group. A few activities, a few emotional conversations. I told them things I'd kept quiet for years. About the pills, about the way I let T pull me away, about how ashamed I felt after I signed away my rights. I cried once. Didn't try to look perfect. Just told the truth. My son barely looked at me during that part. My daughter asked me point blank if I ever wished she hadn't been born. I told her I almost had an abortion. Not because I didn't want her, but because I didn't know if I'd survive being a mother. She got up and walked out. That night, they slept in the cabin, and I slept in my car. I drove them home Sunday night. My ex was waiting in the driveway. Didn't even look at me. Just opened the back door and told them to get inside. My daughter said nothing. My son didn't either. I sat there in the car and watched the front door close. 2 days later, I reached out to their stepmom. She's been in their lives since they were 5 or 6. I haven't talked to her once directly. I asked if we could meet. She agreed. We met at a cafe. I told her I wasn't trying to erase her. I said I respected that she raised them, that they probably saw her as mum in most ways. But I said I was their mother, too, and that I wanted them to know me, even the worst parts. She stayed calm, but told me the only thing the kids needed from me now was consistency, not dramatic scenes, not long stories, not gifts that made them feel guilty. Just show up, quietly, until they trust me. I told her she had no idea what it's like to be erased from your own family. She said, "I do. My own mother left us when I was 8. And she came back with a whole script about her pain. But no one had asked for that play." I left. I didn't text the kids that night. I did, however, get a tattoo the next day. Their names and birthdays in my handwriting along my forearm. I sent them a picture. My daughter replied with a thumbs up. My son didn't respond. Friday, I picked up my son from school. He asked if I could drop him at his dad's work. I said sure, but I asked if he wanted to talk first. Just 10 minutes. He agreed. I parked near a lake we used to take him to when he was little. I told him I wasn't trying to shove myself in, but I needed him to know his dad's version of the past wasn't the whole thing. That he was a good man, sure, but he also checked out emotionally. That I felt alone in the marriage long before the affair. That I tried to get help, but it wasn't always there. I told him I wasn't a great mom, but he made me feel like I mattered. My son looked at me and said, "You could have told me that without taking me out of school." He got out and walked to a nearby gas station. I waited in the car until I saw his dad pull up to get him. I didn't try again that weekend, but I did something else. I filed a motion for custody restoration. I know it sounds insane, but legally, I can still request joint legal rights before they turn 18. I'm not asking for full custody. I'm asking for recognition for some formal space in their lives while I still have time. I haven't told the kids yet. I want to. But I know their dad's going to get the papers soon. And when he does, he's going to go nuclear. He'll probably block me. Maybe file something in return. I'm not doing it to start a war. I'm doing it because I'm done being erased. My daughter is applying for college. My son just started driving lessons. I don't want to be the distant breakfast appointment they forget about by next year. I want to be someone who mattered, even a little. They don't have to call me Mum, but they shouldn't forget who I am either. I'm not asking for permission anymore. I've played nice. I've waited. I've apologized. I've shown up. And all I got in return was a seat at the kids' table, while the adults rewrote my story like I died 10 years ago. I'm not dead. And I'm not disappearing quietly again. Comments. Comment 1. There's a pattern here that scares me, and it's not about the past or the addiction. It's about how often you reframe resistance as erasure. The kids hesitating becomes evidence they've been influenced. Your ex saying no becomes rewriting history. Anyone asking you to ease up becomes an enemy to your narrative. That mindset will burn every bridge you're standing on. These aren't neutral chess moves, they're emotional earthquakes for teenagers who already lived through one parent vanishing. The retreat crossed a serious line, the same with pulling your son out of school to unload marital grievances. Those conversations serve you, not him. And filing a legal motion without telling the kids is going to feel like betrayal when they find out. You want permanence so badly that you're willing to rip up whatever fragile trust exists to get it. That's the same impulsive thinking that wrecked things the first time, just wearing a sober face now. Recovery isn't only staying clean, it's learning when to stop pushing. Right now, you're still chasing relief instead of connection. Comment 2. The way you've approached all of this feels like an apology you're trying to force them to accept, and when they don't, you double down. That retreat should have been talked through, not packaged as a done deal. Your daughter didn't leave that car behind because she didn't care. She probably didn't want to feel bought. Same with the tattoo. Kids that age are weird about stuff like that. They don't always know how to react. But when it feels like pressure in disguise, they shut down. And dragging your son out of school to tell him how unloved you felt in your marriage, that doesn't open doors. It buries him in your grief. He's still figuring himself out, not your marriage, not your past, not your loneliness. Legal paperwork will just confirm what they're probably already wondering, whether this is about them or about fixing how you feel. I get it, the clock's ticking. But trying to lock something in before they turn 18 with guilt, gifts, and courts won't make them trust you. If you want real peace here, stop trying to do something. Just be here. Quietly, consistently. Let them come to you or don't. That's the risk. Comment 3. Every action you've taken screams urgency, but it's the kind that comes from panic, not love. You don't trust time to do its job, so you keep jamming proof of your commitment into moments that aren't asking for it. Buying a car, surprise retreats, personal confessions, none of those were things your kids requested. And when they hesitated, you took it as rejection. But it wasn't rejection. It was them needing space to catch up emotionally while you're racing ahead. People don't rebuild trust on someone else's timeline. It has to be mutual, or it's just pressure. The most painful part is how often their silence gets misread. Silence from teenagers is complicated. It's not always a no. But it sure as hell doesn't mean go louder. You keep saying you want to be seen, but you're not stopping long enough to see them. They're not props in your redemption arc. They're people with their own feelings about what happened. And if you want real relationships, you have to stop demanding full emotional access just because time is short. Show up. Be boring. Stay available. If they choose you, it has to be on their terms, not through court paperwork. Update. I don't know if this is the update people expected. I'm sure most of you will say it proves every comment calling me selfish was right. But I'm not going to lie about what happened. I'm not going to edit it to make myself look better. I'm just going to tell it exactly as it unfolded. After I filed for custody restoration, everything slowed. I thought my kids would at least reach out, ask why I did it, and ask what I wanted. Instead, silence. My daughter didn't respond at all. My son sent a one-word text. Why? A few days after that, I moved. I found an apartment in the same complex they live in with their dad. I didn't tell anyone. It's not a big building, 12 units, quiet street, no gate. I didn't move in to stalk them. I moved in because I wanted to be near them without asking permission. I thought maybe if they saw me regularly, running errands, walking my dog, just living like a normal person, it would soften something. The first few days, nothing. I saw their dad at the mailbox once. He nodded, nothing more. I didn't push it. Then I started showing up at the cafe where my daughter works. Just once at first. Ordered tea, tipped $20, and sat for 20 minutes. She looked surprised, but didn't say anything. Next time, I brought a book and stayed longer. The third time, she asked me not to come during her shift. I asked why. She said it was weird. I said it was support. She walked away. I didn't stop. One morning, I brought her a drink before her shift started. She was polite but cold. I left. That same afternoon, her manager messaged me through Facebook. Apparently my daughter told her she was uncomfortable. I was asked not to return. I never replied to the message. That night, I went to my son's job. He works at a hardware store. I walked in, bought nothing, and waited at checkout until he noticed me. He looked stunned. Said, "What are you doing here?" I told him I wanted to talk, even just for 5 minutes. He looked around and said, "At work? Seriously?" I said I wouldn't make a scene. I just needed him to know I'm still trying. He told me to leave. I drove home and started crying. That's when I poured a drink. I'm not proud of it. I'd been sober for 3.5 years. I didn't even think it through. I opened the cabinet where I keep rubbing alcohol and thought, it would be so easy. But I didn't go that far. I drove to a liquor store, bought a small bottle, and drank half of it in the car. I told myself I needed to feel nothing for a few hours. Just to sleep. 2 days later, I tried again. I showed up at the DMV where my son was taking his driving test. I knew the time. I overheard it once at dinner weeks ago. I waited outside in the parking lot. Brought balloons. Taped a sign on my car. "You did it, M." His name in big letters. He saw me, froze, and walked back inside. The instructor came out and asked me to leave. I did. That night, his dad called. He said, word for word, "I regret ever letting you back in. I should have followed my gut." I told him I was trying. I said none of this would have been necessary if he'd actually worked with me, instead of locking me out the second things got difficult. He said I was done. That I was no parent. That showing up at their jobs, homes, and now the DMV was harassment. That he'd spoken to a lawyer. I told him I wasn't afraid of paperwork. I told him I had every right to be there. The next morning, I received a cease and desist notice from his attorney. It wasn't a full restraining order yet. It was a formal warning. That night, I drank again. The day after, I made 2 kits. One for each kid. Memory boxes. Inside were photos, their hospital tags, my rehab ID, old drawings they made in preschool, and notes I kept from parenting classes I took during early recovery. I included one letter each 4 pages, handwritten. No tears, no begging, just truth. About how hard I fought to get here. About how everyone gave up on me except me. About how I never stopped thinking of them, even in the darkest moments. About how scared I am that I'll die as nothing more than a cautionary tale in their heads. I sent the boxes via certified mail. Required signature. Neither of them signed. I received them both back, unopened. I kept one. Threw the other in a dumpster behind a gas station. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have. I contacted my son's girlfriend. We've met once, briefly, months ago. I found her Instagram and messaged her. I told her I was worried about him, that he hadn't spoken to me in weeks, and I didn't know how to reach him without it being a big thing. I asked her to pass him a letter. She said no. Politely, but firmly. Said she wasn't comfortable getting involved. I thanked her. An hour later, I got a message from my ex. Contact my kids or anyone close to them again, and I swear I will bury you legally. I didn't reply. I made one last stop. At their building. Waited in my car. Just wanted to see them come home from school or work. I watched my daughter walk up the stairs. She turned around and saw me parked there. Just stared. Then she walked inside. I haven't reached out since. I relapsed again that night. Heavily. Didn't leave bed the next day. Missed work. Flushed the rest 2 days later. Been dry for 5 days now. Counting again. I've gotten no texts. No missed calls. Just a final letter from his lawyer. A petition for a formal restraining order. Included screenshots of messages, timestamps, and incident reports. DMV. Workplaces. Apartment complex security logs. Even photos of me in the cafe. I'll respond. Of course I will. But it's clear I've lost something I don't know how to get back. All of this over me trying to discipline my kids for drinking. That's how it started. That's what lit this match. People say I crossed a line. But all I did was care loudly. And apparently that's unforgivable. Comments. Comment 1. Hard truth. The drinking didn't start the fire, but it poured gas on it. From the outside, what your ex sees is a pattern of fixation followed by relapse when things don't go your way. That's terrifying when kids are involved. Workplace visits, public scenes, contacting their partners, those aren't care loudly. Those are behaviors that make people lock doors. He didn't wake up one morning wanting legal distance. He watched the situation slide towards chaos and acted. And yeah, the kids are almost adults, which makes all of this worse. They're old enough to remember the absence and young enough to be shaken by instability. Being sober for years matters, but staying sober under stress matters more. This season tested that, and it broke something fragile. Right now, every attempt to force meaning just confirms his fear that you can't slow yourself down. Sit with the order. Get support. Say less. Do less. The silence hurts, but pushing through it has already cost you more than waiting ever could. Comment 2. Every move you made in this update screams panic wrapped in love. The job drop-ins, the DMV stunt, the girlfriend outreach, those didn't come from hate. They came from fear of being forgotten. But fear doesn't equal entitlement. The clock ticking down to 18 doesn't turn adult kids into emotional lifeboats. If they're pulling back, it might be the most honest thing they've done in this whole situation. Their silence isn't cruelty, it's self-preservation. You wanted to show them your history, but instead you handed them a live wire. That restraining order. It's not a wall. It's a flare. Everything is saying, pause. Not just for them, for yourself. If your identity is still tethered to being their mum before doing the slow, hard work of becoming someone stable on her own, then every rejection will keep wrecking you. You're chasing resolution. But this part of the story might not have won yet. Comment 3. The issue here isn't that you cared. It's how you funneled that care. Every gesture came packed with weight. Your kids didn't ask for boxes full of guilt. Letters loaded with pressure. Appearances that read more like ambushes than love. When people say, show up, they don't mean physically park in front of someone's life and wait to be let in. Presence isn't proof if it leaves people anxious. And when the relapse happened, it confirmed what your ex probably feared from the start, that underneath the effort was a fragile thread already fraying. No one wins here. The kids lose a chance at a slower, better reconnection. You lose years of healing momentum. Your ex has to pick up the emotional fallout all over again. You're not broken beyond repair, but you're not in a place to rebuild relationships right now either. This isn't about punishment. It's about space. Not silent space. Let that difference sink in. Until you stop chasing closeness like a fire alarm, everyone near you will keep running the other way. Second story. My delusional twin quit school and went NC with our parents for her cheating boyfriend. Now she is pregnant and got dumped by that creep, and she wants me to help her. But I have a promising future and don't want to anger my parents by supporting her. Temporary account. I'm not revealing too many details, but I'd appreciate honest opinions. I am 21, have a twin sister. When we were 12, we immigrated to Canada. When we started university, our parents paid for all our expenses so we could focus on studying and not worry about working to pay the bills. They had one condition: no having children before graduating, finding a job, and becoming financially independent. I've been with my girlfriend, who is the same age as me, for a year. My sister met at 42 last year. From the start, my parents were against her dating an older man. They had many talks with her, but she insisted she loved him. Later, she told my parents she was pregnant. They begged her to terminate the pregnancy, which upset her. She told them she did not need their help, said she was quitting school anyway, and went no contact. She messaged me yesterday saying Ed broke up with her and kicked her out. They had been having problems, and he has been seeing other women. She asked if she could live with me until she figures things out. She is due in March. Here is the problem. If my parents find out, they will probably cut me off financially too. I do not want to get involved in this drama. I am doing really well in school because I can focus completely on studying without worrying about work. My girlfriend, and we do not live together, thinks I am being an arsehole. She says my sister is leaving an abusive situation and that I need to help her. Here are my options: be a good brother and a decent person and help out my sister and lose everything. Or tell my sister that you made your bed, so enjoy lying on it. What is the reasonable solution to this situation? How do I fix this without burning my future to the ground? TLDR. I am a 21-year-old university student whose parents fully support me financially under strict conditions. My twin sister got pregnant by a 42-year-old man, went no contact with our parents, and quit school. Now that he kicked her out, she wants to live with me while pregnant. If my parents find out, they will likely cut me off financially, which would hurt my education. My girlfriend thinks I am wrong for hesitating and says my sister is leaving an abusive situation. I am torn between protecting my future and helping my sister. Added, my sister is keeping the baby. She is due soon. Perhaps I wasn't clear enough. When she first found out she was pregnant, she reached out to my parents. They begged her to get an abortion. She said no and told them she doesn't need them. She said she and Ed are fine without them. Then after her breakup, she reached out. But this time my parents refused to even talk to her. So she called me instead as a last resort. Ed is a deadbeat loser with a crappy job. He is still legally married, separated for years from his wife, and has kids with his wife. Comments. To a downvoted commenter asking why his parents would cut him off. Because there is a huge drama between my parents and my sister. They don't like that the money they give me goes to her. If I do, I'll get cut off too, probably. Comment 1. Look into women's shelters. Was she abused at all? OP. Well, she said he was emotionally and verbally abusive. So yes. Comment 2. Sorry, but yeah, YTI. It might not be easy, but our moral strength is tested on whether we do the right thing in the face of adversity. Not just when it's the easy choice. If you leave your twin sister pregnant and homeless with nowhere to go but back to an abuser twice her age, when you had somewhere she could have stayed, yeah, that makes you an arsehole. OP. Then we both will be homeless. I have to find a job to provide for her, me and her baby. My grades will suffer. Comment 3. You can't set your future on fire to keep someone else warm today. The idea that you should sacrifice your education and financial help from your parents in order to help your sister is nuts. Look for alternative resources or extended family who can help, or tell your GF to take in your sister. Also, talk openly with your parents about your sister's situation and ask them if they think you should take her in or help her out. I realize you think they would cut off their assistance, but you need to know for sure. OP. Unfortunately, my GF can't. She lives with a roommate too. I live in a studio apartment. All our relatives are back home. I'm going to call my parents and beg them to help her, my only option at this point. Comment 4. I suppose that, by living in Canada, you guys have strong laws that protect single parents and their children. She should fight that in court, if able. You are under no obligation to help her. She kind of made her own bed, and your life may be negatively affected if you let a baby move in with you. OP. That's if she goes after Ed. I mentioned him helping, and she got upset and said, forget about him. Comment 5. Unless something bad happened Iquam. She needs to act like a grown-up because she is and go to court, not forget him. He is the father of his child. He needs to act like one. OP, I completely agree. He is the father. He should pull his weight. My sister wants nothing to do with Ed and expects me to help her. I get it. She is my sister. But I don't want my grades to suffer either. OP adds, Ed already has kids with his wife, so I'm not sure if he even wants to be involved. He can be not involved and still help financially. But my sister told me to forget about him. Comment 6. Surely you can help her in other ways, such as helping her apply for housing and benefits, and supporting her emotionally when the baby is born. The real arseholes are your parents, because what they did was rather callous. OP. The waiting list for housing for low-income families is years where I live. Yes, I agree my parents are being unfair and cruel. To another downvoted commenter. Are you in Canada? What public service are you talking about? CCB starts after the baby is born. What magical support is out there that you know of and no one else does? Other siblings where she is staying? Yes, we do. We have an 11-year-old brother. She is for now staying at her friend's, but she has to leave by Friday. OP expands. Well, I feel like an RC hole, but everyone warned her about this creep. Even when she got pregnant, my parents talked to her, and she refused to listen. I agree it's my parents' job to support her. But now I'm paying the price of her mistakes. Comment 7. It's a studio apartment. Her living there will probably be against his lease and seriously disrupt his life and education. Imagine trying to study with a crying baby, and you have nowhere to go for a quiet place to study. OMG, I haven't even considered that. I doubt my landlord even allowed her and her baby to stay with me. Comment 8. She's unable to take care of her baby. What's her plan? Live with you in your studio apartment for an unknown amount of time. OP, yes, until she comes up with a plan. Figure out childcare, get a job, and have enough money. OP adds, I know. When I asked her what her plan was, she had none. When is she planning to go back to work after birth? She has no clue. Is she going after Ed for support? Absolutely not. Then it's a permanent thing. She said no. But she has no one and wants my help. Sister's work. She now works part-time at Shoppers, and apparently is not getting along with her manager. I really wish my parents would help her. Mini update in the comment. I left multiple messages for them parents. They haven't called me back. They will. Later that day. I'm going to their place on Friday. Hopefully they won't cut me off too. Who knows? Really? Update. Probably my last update. I managed to get a hold of my parents. It turns out they didn't reject my sister. They are willing to help her, but only under their conditions. She needs to go back to school when the baby is 1. My parents will pay for her expenses and the baby's expenses. She is not allowed to party, date, or do anything like that. My parents basically said that if she has time to party or go on dates, she has time to take care of her baby. They will help with childcare if she wants to study, rest, or go to school. She can move in with them until she graduates and gets a job that can support her and the baby. In other words, my sister did not tell me the whole story. I called her afterwards. She said she didn't mention that because this is extremely controlling, misogynistic, and toxic. She said they cannot control a grown woman or decide her love life. I told her this is pretty much her only option. She said she is disgusted that I abandoned her and put my own happiness first. I asked her what her plan was. She hung up. I know I probably deserve to be called an RC hole, but I really cannot afford to quit school right now to help her. Comment. Comment 1. You did the right thing, OP. Their conditions are fair, considering she won't even be able to pay anything while she and her child live there. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.